Hokage Unlimited enhancement every 60 days. Chapter 361 to 380. 361. Green pheasant is dead. Freezing time. An instant, a freezing air with a temperature below -30 degrees was suddenly released from the green pheasant. In less than 2 seconds, a layer of ice completely sealed Longcheng's body. His approach, like Longcheng, kills 10,000 enemies and loses 8,000. Because Longcheng's fists are full of armed domineering, so once they are all shot down, the old life of Qingzi will probably be over. And the best time to escape was the moment when Chao Liquor Mahak jumped away. Obviously, Aokiji also realized at this time that he might perish with Longcheng. Be able to die with a pirate at the level of Dragon City, for Admiral Aokiji, it is considered decent. Longcheng suddenly felt a sword in his heart. Did he really want to be buried in this battle? I saw that his fists were clenched tightly, and he used almost all his strength, but he couldn't break the ice of the green pheasant. The reason why Qingzi was reluctant to gamble and tried to dodge was also one of the reasons, that is to use this freezing power to continue to restrain Longcheng, so as not to be escaped by the other party and miss such a good opportunity to get rid of Longcheng. I have to say that from the very beginning, Longcheng felt that, compared to the one-strand Akainu, Aokiji knew how to make self-sacrifice and was more suitable to be the marshal of the navy. Pity that the fate of the two of them also depends on the battle in the future. Moment of life and death, Longcheng glared angrily and roared. Ah! Boom! I saw that when he was in danger, he once again forcibly transformed into the form of a phantom beast, a nine-tailed fox, and used his huge body to directly break through the ice of the green pheasant. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Next second, just when Longcheng successfully escaped, what appeared in front of Qingzi was a black fist powerful enough to shatter 1,000,000 tiles. The armed color attached to it is domineering enough to make Aokiji, one of the 3 generals of the navy, look shocked. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Dot. Sound of the impact continued. After all, Longcheng hit nearly 100 shots in one go, which almost consumed 70% of his domineering armament. He wanted to use it to kill Hokage Chao Liquor, but he didn't expect Qingzi to get caught in it. You must know that every black dragon tile straight fist struck by Longcheng is powerful enough to level a mountain. With dozens of punches, it is no exaggeration to say that it can instantly destroy more than half of a small country. Hua Zhengquan's fist slammed into the sea, instantly arousing huge waves of hundreds of meters, and at the same time forming a small vortex underwater. Pirate ships or naval battleships in the path will be caught in the vortex if they are not careful, unable to escape safely. However, fortunately, driven by the huge waves, the misty smoke around it seemed to have thinned a lot, and the scene of the smoke filled with gunpowder smoke gradually became much clearer. Since Longcheng couldn't detect where the still-alive Chao Liquor Mahak was, he could only release the absolute field of knowledge and color again. In an instant, he held his breath, used the fastest shave, and disappeared in place. Brush. At this time, a huge air blade with a length of 15 meters slid past the position where Longcheng was just now, but fortunately, Longcheng escaped dangerously. Although he can freely perform moon steps in the air, which is something that Jorakur Mahak is inferior to, but at the moment when the visibility is weak, it is easier to reveal his position, especially the eagle-eyed one. Pair of unique eyes. Brush. 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 Immediately afterwards, Longcheng successfully escaped Eagle Eye's sword energy one after another, which made Eagle Eye more and more annoyed, and even felt that Longcheng should not appear in this world. Okay, I didn't expect you to be so strong. Since that's the case, I'll use 100% of my strength to fight you to the death. Jorakur Mahak still had a paralyzed face and said solemnly. Since he felt a strong murderous aura from Shen Xuan's eagle eye, Longcheng couldn't help swallowing his saliva, and his breathing became tense. But to say, from just now until now, he has not been able to sense the appearance of the green pheasant. Could it be that this guy was really killed by himself? But this way, it does not mean that no one can compete with Akainu Sakazuki for the marshal position. It's a pity. I was thinking that I could witness the battle between these two generals for 10 days and 10 nights. It seems that this is destined to be a pity. Longcheng said to himself. But Hokage Rachel Mahawk vaguely heard Longcheng's murmur, and was deeply puzzled by what Longcheng said. But this did not prevent him from continuing to launch a more powerful attack on Longcheng. The black knife awakens, destroys mountains and strips rivers. The words fell. Hawkeye raised his arms high, the muscles on his arms bulged slightly, and the blue veins burst out, and I saw that he violently slashed the black knife in his hand at night. Instant, the scenery of heaven and earth changed greatly, the sky was thunderstruck, and the powerful air blade that flew out of the black knife was as fast as lightning, almost twice as fast as before. 362. Fist of Miracle. When the bottom of the air blade gradually reached the sea surface, it instantly made a sea mark as deep as 100 meters like cutting tofu. Wherever the air blade passed, there was a relatively violent earthquake near the sea area. Everyone at sea mistakenly thought that there was a big earthquake, but because of the smoke of gunpowder, they couldn't see the specific situation at all, so they could only continue to fight with the enemy in front of them. And the place where the sea marks were drawn by the air blade, like the end of the waterfall, the sea water frantically went to the crack. Irrigation, as if filling a pothole that can never be filled. Seen from a distance, this picture is more like a big mouth cracked on the sea, and it is swallowing the sea water recklessly. Can you escape from this distance? Longcheng couldn't help but feel tight in his heart. I am afraid that under this sword, his 1 million tile Zhengchen might not be able to stop it. Never mind. How will you know if you don't try it? Soon as Longcheng finished speaking, he immediately changed into the form of a 9-tailed fox, and at the same time released his armed domineering again. 100,000 tile Zhengchen black dragon multiplied by 10. Under the roar, Longcheng's eyes widened, and at the same point, he struck out 20 or 30 punches that were powerful enough to shatter 1 million tiles. In front of the gigantic chi blade, Longcheng's punches are small, but at the same point, if they can superimpose 1 million tile positive punches of the same power, it is equivalent to superposition of strength. In other words, Longcheng swung a total of 30 punches, which is equivalent to the power of 30 million tile Zhengchen at one time. Moreover, it is still attacking the same point, greatly dispersing the power of the air blade. Boom! Instant, due to the impact of the huge impact, huge waves of 100 meters high swayed on the sea level, and swept over to both sides. What a high wave! No, it's dangerous. Everyone, run away. The navy and thieves who were fighting on the small island and the reef were almost scared to the point of being unable to walk when they saw such a high wave. The navy with the power of the devil fruit is even more frightened, because once they touch these sea water, their abilities and powers are likely to be sealed, so that they cannot be used for a short time. At this critical moment, whoever has the ability, the survivability on the battlefield will become extremely low. Help! At this moment, the Dragon City, still suspended in midair, stared at two unfinished energy shocks not far away. And below these two waves of abilities, the seawater kept bubbling up like it was boiling. The scalding blisters were obviously affected by these energies. But soon, the outcome of the victory and defeat, Longcheng and Chao Lakir Mahawk opened their eyes slightly, only to see that the air blade was directly interrupted in half by Longcheng's armed fist, and moved towards one. Going up and down, two different places continued to fly, but they also bypassed the centrally located Dragon City. At this time, the 30 million of Longcheng also moved diagonally downward, hitting Chao Lakir Mahawk. After seeing this scene, Eagle Eye couldn't believe it in his heart. His teeth were clenched. Where did Longcheng come from? And survived unharmed. Key is that Longcheng still has the extra strength to continue to deal with him. Brush. Since the impact of the 30 million watt positive fist had been neutralized just now, Chao Lakir Mahawk just smashed it with a simple wave of a knife with a very simple air blade. Thinking of this, Chao Lakir Mahawk decided to use the trick just now, and he didn't believe that Longcheng could resist again. Longcheng was in the air, vaguely aware that Chao Lakir Mahawk seemed to want to use that trick to deal with himself. It must be admitted that after 2 consecutive rounds of 1 million tile punches, the remaining power was also he could only barely support him to escape, and if he were to resist the stunt of Chowlakor Mahak, I'm afraid he would be more fortunate than his own. Moonlight Dragon City, let me see again, your miracle fist. Jorakir Mahak had already used his eagle to hook his eyes to lock in the weakness of Longcheng, and without hesitation he slashed down the black knife that was raised above his head. Just when Longcheng was a little overwhelmed, suddenly, a shadow rushed out from the nearby mist and smoke, directly blocking the eagle eye. At the same time, the other party also pulled out 2 long swords, which abruptly blocked the blade of Jorakir Mahak. Hokage couldn't help but stun slightly at the moment, and said, "You are Foil Beasta. HMPH, it's an honor to have the world's #1 swordsman, Hokage, remember my name." As usual, still had a smile on his face even when he was fighting. At this time, Hokage felt that the battle situation was becoming more and more unfavorable for him. It is reasonable to say that at this time, the naval powerhouse hidden elsewhere should come out. Even if the Green Pheasant was defeated, no one appeared. 363. A reinforcement. If you want to challenge Moonlight Dragon City and Foil Beasta at the same time, it is indeed a bit laborious for Hokage. Longcheng, leave it to me here, I think your strength is about to be exhausted to the limit, hurry up and keep up with your pirate ship, and continue to look for the shaking fruit left by Dad. In order not to put too much pressure on Longcheng, Beasta said with a smile. Longcheng really wanted to tell him that Whitebeard might still be alive, but this secret was too important, and perhaps even Joe Rachel Mahak didn't know about it. Cheng also assured him in person. Therefore, Longcheng had no choice but to hold the air and use the moon step to quickly leave the battlefield. Beasta saw that Jorakir Mahak's eyes were very wrong. Although the smoke around him was still hazy at this time, the distance between them was not far. They were each stepping on a reef, less than 8 meters apart. Hokage, you're not waiting for your navy companion, are you? Beasta asked with a chuckle. What the hell did you do? Jorakir Mahak asked rhetorically. Do you think it's possible for me to come alone? Along with me, there are also the Red Hair Pirates and the Straw Hat Pirates. When we broke into your surveillance area, we already noticed that someone was watching us, and you, the main force of, has also been led to a large part by us. Don't tell me, you still naively think that Longcheng will not know about it. His perception is far beyond what you and I can imagine. Beasta said. In fact, in the past, when Beasta and Longcheng got along on the Whitebeard Pirates, they had already discovered Longcheng's unique talent. This kid, perhaps so far, is most likely to inherit the will of the Pirate King. Whitebeard had also mentioned this to him in private. Before the battle with Bundywold, Beasta had always been slightly skeptical of his father's words. Because no matter what, the time it took for Longcheng to get the Eudemon's Devil Fruit was too short. If you want to develop new moves step by step, and innovate your own stunts that can defeat the enemy with one move, at least, it will take several years of hard practice. Even if it was Dragon City at the moment, he would still think so. Take Luffy in the original plot as an example, it took 2 years to be domineering, and it was only at the entry level. It's more than enough, but if you meet a pirate in the domineering new world, and want to conquer the enemy with domineering alone, it's a fool's dream. Eagle-eyed Joe Rachel Mahak seems to be completely awakened by Beasta's words. When he fought against Longcheng, he became more and more angry and almost lost his calm reason, which made him neglect this point. It seems that my cultivation is not enough. Jorakir Mahak muttered to himself inexplicably. Beasta couldn't help but stunned, and before he could launch a fierce attack on the opponent, Jorakir Mahak moved behind him, jumped lightly, and disappeared into the hazy smoke. Beasta's swordsmanship. Although it is also very strong, no matter what, I dare not take advantage of this time to pursue Hokage. That is the world's #1 swordsman. If you can't provoke it, it's better not to provoke the opponent. On the contrary, Beasta thinks it is necessary to support the Straw Hat Pirates, so he finds the little boy who came by him. Flat boat, heading towards a certain direction in the smoke. After about 10 minutes, Longcheng finally found Duke Inuarashi, Cat Viper, Monet and others with his 20-kilometer perception in the absolute domain. Longcheng not only found them, but also found Akainu, Black Wrist Punishment, Sing Sing, and some members of Wangxia Wuhai and other naval battleships in front of them 1 kilometer apart. I wonder why I didn't see Doflamingo. Is it justice for me? What's the opinion on tattoos? Every time Longcheng thinks of this, he can't help but laugh, but considering the urgency of the situation, he can't let him relax. Duke Inuarashi, Cat Viper shopkeeper, and everyone. Immediately, Longcheng stepped on the moon and fell back to the deck from the air. Excellent, Your Highness, it's more than gratifying to see you come back safely. Cat Viper quickly put down the command of the bow and came to Longcheng and said, Young master, you are back. Duke Inu Lan was at the risk of being suspected, and he just wanted to preserve everyone's strength for Longcheng, because he knew that at this moment, there were bound to be groups of navies, and at the same time they were rushing to their final destination, and they had to save the biggest one. The more powerful you are, the higher your odds of winning. His Royal Highness, seeing how exhausted you are, you should go back to your room as soon as possible to take a break. Cat Viper said with concern. Longcheng felt that there was some truth to it, and was about to turn around and walk towards the cabin. At this time, Monet also happened to fly back from not far away. As soon as he landed, he saw Longcheng and was extremely excited. Young master, before you come back, Monet is responsible for all the dangerous things like path exploration. 364. See through the Navy plan. I have to say, this really moved me. Cat Viper added. As a member of the Iron Arm Pirates, everyone is working hard, how can I be lazy? Monet said honestly. From this point of view, Longcheng is very satisfied with his decision to trust Monet. As for Monet's loyalty, Longcheng, who is a traveler, is naturally clearer than anyone else. If you are grateful, you can only talk about it after this battle is over. Monet, you should have found it too. The number of the Navy. Monet nodded seriously and said, I don't know who it is, but as far as I know, they sent at least 1,000 naval troops this time. What 1,000 people? As soon as these words came out, all the pirates around couldn't help but tremble, obviously shocked. Although Longcheng wanted to hide this matter very much, it was very important after all, and he had the responsibility to tell everyone the truth, so he said, everyone, in fact, I don't want to hide it from everyone, the Navy may have never found the fruit of shock, and their relationship, so when I release this news, I just know some general information, and I want to use the hands of all the pirates to find it together, and until anyone finds it, they will kill them all. How could this be so? It turned out that all of this was caused by the Navy's big lie and deceived all of us. Duke Inuarashi gritted his teeth with hatred and said. Longcheng is well aware that, let alone the Navy, the world government will agree to do so. After all, it is not the first time for them to do this. The world government has erased the past 100 years of history. This is the best fact. Biggest expiry in the history of pirates. Everyone thought about it carefully at this time. It seems that what Longcheng said is more and more reasonable, and it is also the most logical. In other words, if it was any of them who got the shaking fruit, they wouldn't be so arrogant that they would use the shaking fruit to attract almost all the pirates in the New World. Young master, even so, the Junjun fruit is what Whitebeard left behind, and the Navy must never succeed. Duke Inuarashi said angrily. Yes, Your Highness, we should take advantage of them to send us and continue to follow closely behind the naval battleship. Naturally, we can easily land on the island and snatch the shocking fruit from the Navy. The cat was dead and said, Do you really think that the people in the Navy didn't find us? Longcheng is not afraid of splashing everyone. To tell the truth, he judged, although we are separated by a kilometer from them, Monet should have been discovered by their scout soldiers during the exploration period. The reason why they didn't stay, or divided some of their forces, To deal with us, I think, the main thing is that they don't think it is necessary to do this, because even if we go, it will not help. After all, among them, it can be said that the strong are like clouds, and we must not underestimate the enemy. Longcheng said truthfully. Damn the Navy, you should look down on us. It's terrifying. The cheeks on both sides of the cat viper bulged slightly and said. However, from the current point of view, Longcheng has already understood the general battle plan of the Navy. The first step is to use the fake news of Junjun Fruit to attract all pirates to go there, and let the Navy advance in various hidden key points in the windless belt. Conduct an attack. Second step can be divided into two results. One result is that if no one finds the devil fruit, the Navy can also take this opportunity to concentrate all the navies sent out to destroy most of the pirates. Another result is that if someone finds the fruit, the main force of the Navy will be divided into two groups. One group is used to block most of the powerful combat power of the pirates, and the other group is responsible for rushing to the destination and grabbing the shock fruit. In this way, they can not only capture and obliterate a large number of pirates to the greatest extent, but also find the shocking fruit. Of course, this plan also has certain risks, that is, the dozen captains of the Whitebeard pirates. Once they lead dozens of pirate groups under their banner to look for them together, I am afraid that no one can stop them except the 3 emperors of the 4 emperors, the 3 generals, and the eagle-eyed people. Perhaps the Navy made another arrangement to let Kaido's beast pirates go to hinder the Whitebeard pirates on the grounds of competing for territory and resources, which led to the fact that only Beasta and Ace came to this operation. Marco, Joe's 4-4. These are also what Longcheng later learned from Beasta's mouth. To be honest, even if Longcheng and the others became the first pirate group to find the Junjun fruit, they were only making wedding dresses for the Navy. Don't think that just after eating the shaking fruit, you will be able to display the amazing power of the sky and the earth like the Whitebeard. It took decades of tempering and actual combat to be developed. Young master, should we continue to chase? Duke Inuarashi confirmed. Chase. Longcheng's mouth rose, Jian Ran smiled, and said very decisively. 365. The medicine given by Caesar. The Navy has opened the door for us to chase. If we don't chase, doesn't it mean that we fled without fighting? If it spreads out in the future, where should the old face of my Moonlight Dragon City go? Longcheng said bluntly. After hearing Shen Xuan's instructions, Duke Inuarashi and Cat Viper left each other, conveying Shen Xuan's meaning to everyone. At this time, Caesar Curon, who was driving the rudder above the ship, saw Longcheng about to enter the cabin, and suddenly shouted, "Master," then. Saying that, Caesar Curon took out a capsule-shaped pill from a small black box beside him, threw it at random, and threw it to Longcheng. After hearing the sound, Longcheng looked up, but saw an unknown object flying over. He immediately reached out to catch it, and after a closer look, it turned out to be a pill. Caesar Kalang explained, "Master, this is a medicine that I developed when I was in Punk Hazard to quickly restore physical strength. After eating it, it can even activate the muscle cells in the body and enhance explosive power." Caesar Current still has this medicine. Longcheng was slightly stunned, and he really couldn't remember. Aside from muscle relaxants and, I can't think of Kaiser Curling as such a miracle drug. However, Longcheng is not at all interested in muscle relaxants and these two drugs. So-called muscle relaxant refers to a drug that can make the muscles of the whole body stiff, so that the victim can't move, the whole body is rigid, and even speech is very difficult. The principle of this agent is that through the stimulation of the drug, it affects the terminal nerve conduction inside the muscle tissue, completely blocking the motor function of the body muscles. As for the astonishing effect of the drug, it is one of Caesar Curran's most proud means of killing and abusing. It spreads rapidly, covers a very wide area, and is not easy to disperse, staying in the air continuously. When Longcheng saw Caesar Curran's kindness, he really felt a bit more vigilant in his heart. It was not because he didn't trust the other party, but because Caesar Curran had never done anything that made him trustworthy so far. even in the original plot. If you have to say Caesar Curran's image in Longcheng's mind, the words that Longcheng can sum up based on his impressions are all derogatory, such as cunning, treacherous, and cunning. And only when threatened, the other side will show the good side. Just as in the original plot, Sanji Pembeki repeatedly threatened Caesar with Caesar's heart, forcing Caesar to back down. Longcheng also has what Caesar wants most, the bloodline factor map. I don't know if I have experienced the lessons of the Shanghai incident, and now I have learned well, so I will take the initiative to show my love to Longcheng. Although Longcheng still has some doubts in his heart, to say whether Caesar Curran will have related drugs to promote physical recovery, Longcheng is more willing to believe there is. Because Caesar Curran is a smart person, as long as there is a drug-making invention, he will have a corresponding antidote, just like, in the Uzo chapter of the original storyline, Caesar Curran once used his neutralizing gas cleared, which allowed the local residents to stock up. Since Kaiser has the ability to develop something like a muscle relaxant, such a drug should also have a way to make a drug that activates muscle cells. At this time, Caesar Curran purposely glanced at Longcheng, and seemed to want to see how Longcheng would react. After all, he once wanted to escape from here, and even stole the bloodline factor map after assassinating Longcheng. But now, to do such a thing inexplicably, it really feels a little guilty. HMPH, if I had known this earlier, I shouldn't have taken out such a precious pill and made fun of myself. Just when Caesar Curran just came up with this idea, Longcheng had already heard his heartfelt voice with a domineering look, and the corners of his mouth could not help but twitch, and in front of Caesar Curran, he pretended to be completely ignorant. Swallow the pill. After that, he continued to walk forward without changing his face. This guy. Caesar Curran suddenly turned pale with fright, and thought to himself, isn't this Moonlight Dragon City not taking precautions? If I gave him a one poison just now, wouldn't he be dead? As an old team in the New World, a naval mad scientist who has been conducting various experiments in Punk Hassad all the year round, how could Caesar Curran not know what special abilities he has? It's just that Longcheng didn't make it public, and he couldn't perceive it himself. Naturally, he wouldn't think in this direction for the first time. What's more, how rare is the telepathic sense of domineering, although the sense of knowledge and the armed color are theoretically the same. Everyone is born with it, but not everyone can inspire it. As for telepathy, it is no exaggeration to say that it is as rare as Charlotte Katakori's domineering vision of the future. 366. The decision to recruit Dragon City. In fact, this is indeed the case. In the impression of Longcheng, in the early stage of the pirates, except for Analu and Aisha, no one has ever owned the first half of the entire Great Waterway. Even in the New World, there are very few people who can perceive the soul. This scene was also seen by Monet behind him. Monet was already impressed by the magnanimity and arrogance of Longcheng at this time. To be able to follow such a master, even if he went through fire and water, or even died. Among the naval battleships ahead, a lottery winner hurriedly ran down the aisle of the cabin and rushed into an office. Kai, Red Dog General, Master Yuan said he was looking for you in a hurry. The lieutenant said very nervously at this time. Because just a few minutes ago, Akainu repeatedly emphasized that no one can disturb him. He was angry, and obviously, Akainu was still entangled in the matter of letting go of Moonlight Dragon City by himself. As long as you give him a little more time, he will all catch that guy this time. Result, the Navy on the front line suddenly called their fleet and had to choose to evacuate. In order to calm himself down, Sakazuki also handed the phone bug to an unimpressed lieutenant general for safekeeping, and after a while, the other party rushed into his office. You bastard! Just when Sakazuki wanted to vent his anger on the lieutenant general, suddenly, a familiar voice came from the phone bug. Hey, is that Akainu? This is the voice of the Master Yuan. Sakazuki forcibly suppressed his anger, and the lieutenant general took the phone bug from his hand, and the lieutenant general fled out of the room trembling as if he were freed. Marshal, what's the matter? Akainu asked in a cold tone. Warring States heard it. Although he guessed something big, he deliberately pretended not to know, and continued, according to the news from the rear, the Moonlight Dragon City group seems to be right where they are, you can catch them if you can. But we must take the snatch of the Junjun fruit as the first task. Got it, Master Yuan. Akainu's eyes can guess the tone of the Warring States period, but he never thought that Longcheng would actually be able to pass through the gateway that the Navy couldn't handle. By the way, there is one more thing I have to remind you. The Moonlight Dragon City has been reconsidering whether he can take it for his own use and agree to Wang Wuhai's request. Warring States said. What? After Sakazuki heard the words, his eyes widened immediately, with a look of dementia, and then he gritted his teeth, itching all over his body with hatred, and asked angrily, are the people above so clever that they agree with Moonlight Dragon? What kind of ridiculous joke is the city joining the king's lower Chihuahua? Do you think I am joking with you? In fact, the Warring States also knew that, for example, Sakazuki would have such an idea, and I am afraid that many people in the Navy would also agree with it. But after all, this is the meaning of the world government, and as a naval master, he can only obey. However, for Longcheng, a pirate whose strength and talent are beyond ordinary people's imagination, let him join the Chihuahua under the king, and the Warring States period still feels a little inferior. Of strength, Longcheng doesn't seem to be ranked among the four emperors. No, I don't agree, Master Yuan. Have you forgotten that when Moonlight Dragon City was kidnapping the Tianlong people, he said in front of many pirates that he would fight our navy to the end? If Moonlight Dragon City were to join him, it is bound to take this opportunity to develop and strengthen his power. This is a stupid decision to breed tigers. Sakazuki said angrily. Isn't it stupid? It's not your turn to make irresponsible remarks. The world government will have such an arrangement. Naturally they have their reasons. Take a 10,000 steps back and say, even if Moonlight Dragon City wants to take this opportunity to develop its power, it is also possible to give him some extremely difficult tasks to reduce his strength and maintain a certain balance, which is not difficult for us. What's more, the threat of Moonlight Dragon City is not necessarily the biggest threat to our navy. Many years ago, Kaido, Whitebeard, Redhead, Doflamingo, and others, which one of them did not give our navy a headache? The pirates, as long as we can give them the conditions they want most, they will choose to submit to us, rather than blindly stand against us. That being said, what should I do now? When I see the pirate group in Moonlight Dragon City, should I arrest or not arrest them? Sakazuki said angrily. Well, of course, it's going to be caught. Not only do you have to catch it, but you should do your best to catch it, and don't reveal the slightest flaw. If you can drive Moonlight Dragon City to a desperate situation, that would be even better. The second half of the Warring States period is completely a consolation prize. To make Sakazuki feel more comfortable, because Sengoku already knew very well that an Akainu alone would not be able to compete with Moonlight Dragon City. Before hanging up the phone, Senguo remembered another thing, and said casually, you have news of Aokiji there. 367. Roger and Whitebeard's secret. No, what's wrong? Sakazuki asked with a sullen tone. According to the news from Hokage Rachel Mahawk, he lost contact with Aokiji. Qingzi, this guy, he is always acting like a yin and yang, and he looks like he is going to die, but he is angry when he looks at it. Sakazuki said. Qingzi and Chao Liquor Mahawk confronted the Moonlight Dragon City at the trap gate of our subordinates. The green pheasant was defeated, and it was suspected that it had been driven into the bottom of the sea. I have already sent Marines to go to the sea to find someone, but so far there is no any news. I thought you met him. After speaking, they both hung up the phone. Sakazuki calmed down, as if he was woken up by cold water. If what the Warring States said were true, how terrifying the true strength of Moonlight Dragon City was. Even his Akainu didn't dare to challenge Aokiji and Hawkeye at the same time, and Moonlight Dragon City not only defeated Aokiji, but also escaped from Jorakur Mahawk. Realizing this, Sakazuki walked out of the office and decided to make another deployment. You must know that to be qualified to be a general, not only rely on strong force, but also know how to deploy the navy reasonably, reduce casualties of one's own side, and win victory with the least loss. Island. At this time, the purple clouds in the sky were getting thicker and denser, and the thunder was startling, as if there was going to be a violent storm at any time. In the central area of the island, seen from a distance, there is a tall and burly man, holding a kongyunchi that is more than 2 meters long in his hand. Of coldness. Since it has been in the central area of the island, I have been searching for a long time. Find in the vicinity. If it were him before, I'm afraid he would have been furious and shattered the island with one punch. However, for the purpose of this trip, he endured the most. After all, as a dying person, he seems to have clearly felt that his remaining time is running out. He is the father of Beasta, Marco, and other pirates, and the person Longcheng tried so hard to find, Whitebeard, Edward Newgate. Sloppy. Sloppy. Because of the recurrence of the old disease, Whitebeard was in pain, and he could only force himself to keep walking forward, just to find one thing, the same thing that Roger entrusted him to find before he died, and it was also something that Whitebeard had to find. The only missing piece of black and gold history. Yes, there have been rumors from the outside world that Gul Roger, the Pirate King, has found all the 26 pieces of history except the 4 pieces of red history, which record 100 years of real history that was blank in the past. As long as the pirates successfully reach the end of the Great Waterway, Ralph drew, they will be able to find and unravel everything in the past, including the blank 100 years that the world government has tried to hide. However, the fact is that Roger only found 25 pieces of history, and the last piece was left, but there was no news until he personally went to Wano country, and after many inquiries, did he come to the conclusion from many sources. Found some credible clues. But unfortunately, before he could continue to search for the last piece of black and gold history, the incurable disease of his body suddenly intensified. In desperation, Roger had to tell this secret to Whitebeard, who was expected to be recruited by the world government. The history of black and gold, the only one in the whole world who really knows about this matter is Gul Roger. Even the Hades Rayleigh, the red-haired Shanks, the partners who had been born and died together with Roger didn't even know about it. Whitebeard spent most of the second half of his life in search of that unknown piece of black and gold history. Especially when he met Moonlight Dragon City, he learned that Dragon City was His Highness from Wano country, and he also questioned Dragon City in a side-by-side manner, but because Dragon City had no interest in historical matters, Whitebeard had to stop there. Of black and gold can be said to be the connection point of the other 25 pieces of history. If you can collect 25 pieces of history, you can have a very clear understanding of the 100-year history that was concealed by the world government in the past, including various revolutionary events. Of black and gold history is obviously more important. It seems to reveal a causal relationship and uncover the biggest mystery in the world. It is for this reason that even if Whitebeard reaches the end of his life and the fire of life is about to burn out, he must find this piece of history. Regrettably, Whitebeard searched almost all the Central Asian locations on the entire island, but couldn't find any clues. At this moment, Whitebeard's heart was filled with anger. He took a deep breath, and clenched his fists tightly. Philo reminds you. 3 things to read. 368. Conversation at night. Although he is still trying his best to control his emotions, but obviously at this moment, he can't bear it anymore. Drink. Boom. I saw that Whitebeard's eyes were angry. He swung his right fist, and slammed it to the ground. Reminds me of a month and a half ago. It was also days before the Navy announced Whitebeard's death. Late night. Whitebeard was alone and came to the red-haired Shank's site, which is an unnamed island where he lived, along with all nations, Moonlight Moya's world's largest pirate ship, the Terror Bark, and Doflamingo in the compared to the country of Dressrosa before being beaten by Dragon City, it seemed a little cold. The dignified 4 emperors actually lived in such an inconspicuous place. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, I'm afraid no one would believe it was true. At this time, as the deputy captain of the Red Hair Pirates, Ben Beckman has been waiting here for a long time. Whitebeard, long time no see. Ben Beckman carried a long shotgun, a cigarette in his mouth, and a blue cape. When he saw Whitebeard, he didn't mean to be inferior at all. On the contrary, he seemed very calm. Whitebeard was quite surprised. He came looking for the redhead, and only the redhead knew why even Ben Beckman was involved. If it is not clearly marked, the red hair will be misunderstood. Seeing that Whitebeard's expression was a little strange, Ben Beckman smiled immediately to avoid the scene being too embarrassing, and said, "Whitebeard, you can rest assured, I happened to be in the captain's room when you came to see the captain. I overheard it by accident, but please rest assured, I guarantee my life, and I will never reveal a word to the outside world, and as for what you said to the captain, I will not ask any further questions." "Well, let's go." Whitebeard still replied dully, and this was the only thing he could do. After disembarking, Ben Beckman took Whitebeard and walked around the most crowded area, arriving at the place agreed with Red Hair. Ben Beckman kept his promise and left Whitebeard without hesitation. After all, Ben Beckman, who has always done things steadily, is not a curious baby. Since it is a private matter between the captain and Whitebeard, he will not participate. After Ben Beckman left, Whitebeard carefully observed the surroundings, making sure that there was no one around, and then he was relieved. After a while, the red-haired Shanks rushed over, with a usual smile on his face, and asked, "Whitebeard, visiting me late at night, wouldn't you just want to catch up with me? I'm looking for you personally, not only for the sake of reminiscing the past, but also for a very important matter, and I have to ask you," Whitebeard said with a solemn expression on his face. Obviously, the red-haired Shanks also heard the seriousness of the matter from Whitebeard's tone at this time, and under the suggestion of Whitebeard, took the other party to the red-haired room. This is a large or small space, and the furnishings are quite simple. On the table are today's newspapers. After entering the room, the red hair closed the door and sensed the breath outside, then turned around, continued the topic just now, and asked, "Whitebeard, as one of the 4 emperors, what else can you do? It had to be done by me." Quote, "Yes." Whitebeard's tone was more serious, and he said bluntly, "I want to temporarily hand over most of my underground vaults and material keys to you for safekeeping before I die." As soon as these words came out, the red-haired Shankston opened his eyes slightly with a look of surprise on his face. What really surprised Shanks was not that Whitebeard was willing to hand over the keys to the vault and material, but that Whitebeard actually said that he was about to die. "Whitebeard, can you tell me why? I mean, why do you suddenly say that you are about to die? Is it because of your old disease?" Shanks asked. "Well, that's right," Whitebeard said without concealment. "I hope you can keep this matter a secret for me. Even almost everyone on my ship is still unaware, except Marco." "You mean, not even Marco can cure you?" The red-haired Shankston frowned and asked. "Marco's fruit ability can only heal wounds quickly, but it can't cure my old disease from the root. There will be such a result. I have long guessed that now, the thing I can't let go of is mine. Help my sons. I'm afraid I have to learn from Roger in the end, ask the world government for orders, and exchange my life for the safety of the rest of the pirate group." Whitebeard sighed. This point, Shanks, who was a trainee crew member of the original Roger Pirates, was naturally clear. Before Roger turned himself in, he had indeed mentioned to the captains that no one was allowed to rescue him before he was executed. Once someone shoots, that person will also be sentenced to capital punishment. Is Whitebeard going to make the same decision as Captain Roger? 369. Volcano. Thinking of this, the red-haired Shanks said again, "Whitebeard, as one of the 4 emperors recognized by the world government, your situation is not as pessimistic as that of Captain Roger." "No, Redhead, do you know less about the world government than I do? The reason why they allow our 4 emperors to move freely within certain limits, without restrictions, is that you and I are still alive, and my rule is a great threat, so they have to compromise, but once I die, they will definitely find various reasons to eradicate my old ministry. Then, Whitebeard added, the identity of the 4 emperors is indeed a special status and honor, but at the same time, it is also a wake-up call for the world government to remind them all the time. I am different from Roger, because Roger just knows everything. Secret, and left the world alone with this secret, but we are different, we know too much about the secrets of the world government. Will they still tolerate me, and my old department? The government is inconvenient to launch an attack on my old department because of its public commitment, but they will also try their best to let that. The devil, and Kaido send troops, which we have seen too much in the past. After listening to Whitebeard's words, the red-haired Shanks became speechless. He could only remain silent, and after a few seconds, he said again, if you give me the material and the keys to the vault, then you're what to do with the old department. I will leave a part to them. I also gave Marco the responsibility for the key. I know his personality very well, and he will handle it properly. As for your key here, I have also told Marco. If the Navy really sent a powerful force to destroy them, so that they could not continue to contend. When the time comes, he will take the initiative to contact you. I hope you can read our past friendship and help them through the difficulties. As for the price, I would like to in exchange for half the total value of the vault. Whitebeard said frankly. What? The red-haired Shanks was even more astonished at this time. Whitebeard was willing to give up half of the treasury. This huge wealth, no matter who it was, would be an astronomical sum. Although the redhead is very clear, as long as he agrees, it is tantamount to indirectly offending the world government in the future, but listening to Whitebeard's tone, the other party is obviously not joking. Is Whitebeard really dying to face a former he had almost no reason not to agree to his friend's entrustment before his death? After thinking about it again and again, the red-haired Shanks showed a shallow smile and said, okay, Whitebeard, I promise you. Well, I knew that you would definitely agree. Whitebeard smiled slightly, and his smile was also very pleasant. It seemed that the huge stone hanging in his heart that he could not put down was finally relieved. Afterwards, the red-haired Shanks left with a beard, until after Whitebeard boarded the boat. He asked again, Whitebeard, what are your plans next? Generally speaking, ordinary people know that they are about to die, and most of the time they choose to leave quietly, but this is obviously not Whitebeard's style. I still have one more important thing to do. If I can't finish it, I'm afraid I'll die, and I won't have the face to face Roger in that world. After he finished speaking, Whitebeard didn't reveal any other information, just raised the sails and walked away. And the red-haired Shanks could only watch this friend leave with an unspeakable look. Right now. On an island covered with purple clouds. Ah! Whitebeard's eyes widened, he roared wildly, and threw an incomparably hard punch, hitting the ground. Immediately, the entire area in the central area began to experience an extremely violent tremor, and the closer it was to Whitebeard, the stronger the tremor. Immediately afterwards, more and more cracks began to crack on the surface, and as the ground stretched, the openings of the cracks gradually spread. Boom! At this moment, in the most central position of the seat, unexpected lava erupted. Whitebeard knew very well that there were 2 volcanoes there. One was an active volcano that was frequently active, and the other was said to have not erupted for more than 10 years. Whitebeard almost exhausted all of his strength, but he could only affect the central area to this extent, firstly because of his very weak body, and secondly because of the restraining force of this Ziyu. Whitebeard always felt that the volcano that erupted suddenly was a bit strange, so he raised Kong Yunchi, took a steady pace, and rushed forward step by step. At the same time, about 1 kilometer away, 11 Blackbeard suddenly felt a slight tremor from the ground. After all, Blackbeard had been on Whitebeard's boat for many years, and the first feeling of this shock was very familiar to him, and he couldn't help but think of Whitebeard. Even so, Blackbeard was not afraid and accelerated his pace. Since the dark fruit, it is no longer like before, always timid. 370. Dissuade. C. At this moment, almost all the most advanced naval forces were dispatched to the most mysterious island. Longcheng's Iron Wall pirates are also following closely behind. Longcheng believes that besides them, there should be other pirates rushing to the same destination. Because Longcheng was not able to find Marco and Yoja within 20 kilometers of the nearby pheasant when he was fighting against Qingzi and Hawkeye, he guessed that the two of them would have already landed on the island. After the city rested, he was about to get up and walk out of the room. He had to admit that he chose to believe in Caesar Current this time, which was the right thing to do. At least the medicine the other party gave him was very effective, and Longcheng could already feel it, as if there was an extra power in his body that could burst out at any time. Physical strength and fruit ability have also fully recovered. Just as he was about to walk out of the cabin, he suddenly bumped into Monet outside the door. Monet's cheeks were flushed and his face was shy. This was the first time she was so close to Longcheng. Longcheng was quite puzzled and asked, "Monet, is there something wrong?" Hearing this sentence, Monet's heart suddenly turned cold, almost ashes, as if his true feelings were revealed and rejected by Longcheng. Fortunately, I held back my emotions just now. The owner of Longcheng shouldn't be able to see it. Monet thought to himself. Because Longcheng didn't show his arrogance, he didn't know Monet's thoughts yet. The reason why he could always hear Caesar Current's voice at a critical moment was because Caesar Current would always drop the chain at the critical moment and let the dragon the city had to guard against him. But Monet is different. Longcheng still trusts her loyalty. So, Monet retracted his mind and said solemnly, "Master, it's the Navy's phone." Longcheng remembered in a trance that this phone bug seemed to have come back secretly when he sneaked into the battleship of the second branch of the Navy last time, in order to avoid future needs. As a result, I never expected that someone in the Navy would make a call, and who it would be really made Longcheng curious. So, Longcheng took the phone bug from Monet and asked, "Who is it?" Moonlight Dragon City. Since the last Chihuahai incident, we haven't spoken on the phone for a long time, right? The other end of the phone bug, the voice that Longcheng is all too familiar with, the Marshal of the Naval Headquarters, the Warring States of Buddha. Oh, it turned out to be the Marshal of the Warring States period. What are you doing? Longcheng said. At this time, Monet was also on the side. When she heard that it was from the Warring States period, not only did she look tense, but she was quite nervous. Although Longcheng also has a trace of unease, but thinking about it carefully, the Warring States will be opened in person at this sensitive time. At least one thing can be affirmed, if the other party is not trying to persuade them, or persuade them to surrender. It can be seen that the battle between him and Aokiji and Joe Rachel Mahawk should have been passed back to the naval headquarters. Moonlight Dragon City, why do you have to speak so directly? Maybe in the future, you and I may become people in the same boat. Warring States chuckled lightly and said. Marshal of the Warring States period, I don't understand what you mean by that. Longcheng did understand what he didn't understand, although there was a little doubt whether the Warring States period wanted to bring himself to join the Navy. The Orthodox army was naturally impossible, but at least it was one of the 7 Wuhai under the king. However, there is a but. Do you remember the last time? Longcheng deliberately proposed to take all the pirates that hunted in exchange for the seat of the king's Chihuahai, but the Navy betrayed his promise and openly broke his face in a showdown with Longcheng. Many strong men in the Navy were besieged and in danger, almost unable to escape. Okay, I'm calling this time, just to remind you that as long as you are willing to stop moving forward, I personally assure you that we will agree to your request. Warring States said decisively. Longcheng heard it, he immediately understood what the other party meant. It turned out that Warring States wanted him not to snatch the Junjun fruit. If the Junjun fruit falls into the hands of the Navy, it will undoubtedly be a very serious threat to their pirates. Even if it is found by other pirates, Longcheng is also very worried. After all, whether it is the Navy or the pirates, there are both good and evil. The best way is for him to go there in person, and hand over the stolen devil fruits to Bista, Marco and others, and let them take them back. What's more, Apart from the top of the navy, among the pirates, Longcheng thinks that no one should know that Whitebeard may still be alive. The reason why Longcheng had to follow the navy unswervingly was to save Whitebeard, recalling what the red-haired Shanks had said to him. Whitebeard may be seriously ill now. If you are unfortunate enough to meet the navy in front of you, it may be more fortunate than fortune. Marshal of the Warring States, I might as well warn you, no matter what conditions you offer, this time I must secretly say, shake the fruit. 37.1. 1.3 billion bounty. Longcheng's tone at this time was very decisive, and there was no room for him to choose from Warring States. After Warring States heard it, a black line suddenly appeared on his forehead. Any case, the order to persuade Longcheng to join the Chihuahai under the king has been issued, although the Warring States really want to make this great contribution, so that when he retires from the position of the naval headquarters in the future, he can still receive more benefits provided by the world government. The Yuan division candidates is indeed true, and the Warring States also believe that it was time for him to hand over the heavy responsibility of the naval division to the next candidate. Moonlight Dragon City, I have basically made it clear to you what I should say. As for whether you listen or not, it can only be up to you. However, I still want to advise you that it is best to obey our navy. Whether it is good for you or for the partners around you, do you think that with your strength, how does your strength compare with the red-haired Shanks, Kaido, these 4 emperors? The Warring States suddenly pretended to be yin and yang, and said, main reason is that once Longcheng firmly opposes taking refuge in the world government, the world government will inevitably push Longcheng into a desperate situation. Should be noted here that it is the world government, not the navy, that wants to force Longcheng to join, so in terms of threat, the world government is far above the navy. But Longcheng is obviously not aware of it at the moment, just a little stunned, always feel that the other party has something to say, especially Warring States deliberately took Longcheng's partners to talk about things, standing in a hostile position. This is undoubtedly a kind of suggestive intimidation. As long as Longcheng does not give in, the navy or the world government will attack his companions at any time. Cut. Can't you imagine that the world governments are starting to break their hands in order to achieve their goals? Longcheng thought secretly. Why Moonlight Dragon City, don't you know how to answer me? Warring States chuckled lightly and asked. Marshal of the Warring States period, you are still a little special today, you have become very talkative. Longcheng responded, with my current ability, naturally I can't be compared with the 4 emperors. In this regard, Longcheng does not deny it, and he will never be too conceited to think that at this time, he can compete with Kaido and these 4 emperors. So-called 4 emperors originally meant the Emperor of the Sea. That's right. Warring States also thought that Moonlight Dragon City had become arrogant, and felt that he was the strongest person in the world, and this guy had some self-knowledge. Moonlight Dragon City, you are a smart person. If the world wants to kill you, it can be said that it will be effortless. Even the red-haired Shanks, Kaido, and the like are willing to submit to the world, and you will be pretended to be one. With a dignified appearance, don't wait until the world government is completely impatient, and you will regret it when you are serious. Warring States believes that he has made it very clear that if Longcheng is still obsessed, then he can only let him, indicating that this credit is not related to him in Warring States. That being the case, he had no choice but to leave the matter to his organization, such as the secret spy agency, the new navy of the Black Wrist Zephyr, etc. Success or failure has nothing to do with him. If it is said that Moonlight Dragon City really doesn't take his words seriously, then Dragon City's bounty will also soar to 1.3 billion. Hanging up the phone, Longcheng fell into contemplation. The hints of the Warring States period were already obvious, and he was a little suspicious that the world government had begun to point the finger at him, either friend or foe. Probably that was what it meant. If it is only Longcheng alone, he can completely fear the world government, because he has a strengthening system. All he lacks is time. As long as there is enough time, he can become stronger than he is now. Longcheng Master, are you all right? You look worried. Could it be that the Warring States period is threatening us? Monet was concerned. Longcheng simply smiled at her, didn't say much, and then walked out of the cabin. Caesar Current, your medicine works very well, thank you. Longcheng raised his head and extended his thumb towards Caesar in the cockpit. Caesar Curon was praised by Dragon City for the first time, and he was a little overwhelmed and his heart tightened. In the Navy camp. After Sakaski made a new deployment, he was preparing to return to the office. Walking on the deck, he kept echoing the words that the Warring States and him said to him. If the Moonlight Dragon City really joins the Chihuahai under the king, then the two of them will not look up and see each other. Wouldn't they have to fight every day? What's more, Sakaski has repeatedly fallen on Longcheng's hands before, and I'm afraid the other party will be even more in the future. Despise yourself, especially in front of the Navy. Is undoubtedly a great humiliation for Sakaski, the three admirals of the Navy. Damn Dragon City. At this time, he instructed a helmsman again. Master Yuan called just now. 3 minutes later, change the course in the direction of 15 degrees to the north, and General Huang Yuan will join us there. Yes. After the helmsman got the order, he may have rushed to the wheelhouse to inform everyone. Just when Akainu was about to turn around, suddenly, out of the corner of his eyes, he saw something. 372. Akainu vs. Dragon Fruit. As that, pirates. Soon as Akainu finished speaking, a neatly dressed navy walked past him at a rapid pace. When he saw Akainu, he immediately stopped and reported, report to General Akainu, 300 meters ahead. I found 1 or 2 pirates, and looking at their flags, it should be the Drake pirates. What? Drake pirates? Akainu couldn't help but stunned and said to himself, why is that guy Drake here? It stands to reason that this guy should follow Kaido to snatch Whitebeard's territory. Why did he appear here? Kaido, this bastard, also wants to take a piece of the pie. Although Sakaski was already very unhappy, he still had to face the facts. After all, this operation and the red-haired Shanks were here. How could Kaido be willing to be absent? In Sakaski's view, if the 4 after the emperors get the Junjun fruit, they will take the initiative to hand it over to the world government, which is naturally the best. The most worrying thing is, they are hiding it, especially the red-haired Shanks, and the Whitebeard. The pirate group is not very friendly. At the same time, those on Dirk's ship also noticed that the Navy was catching up. Boss, the Navy has been following our ass. Could it be that they want to suddenly attack us? A woman dressed in Western-style clothes said in shock. Who is the leader? Drake asked. It's not clear yet. Women's Road. Call the Navy to determine the specific situation, and don't accidentally hurt your own people. Drake dealt with it calmly. However, before they could ask the Navy headquarters the reason, Akainu suddenly jumped into the air, using the fruit ability, turned his right arm into a lava fist, and threw a heavy punch from the air. Big fire. Instant, an incomparably huge melting fist approached the pirate ship on the opposite side, accompanied by a boom in the air. With a bang, the melting fist quickly exploded and turned into a dozen or 20 volcanic bombs, falling from the sky, a piece of black pressure, forcing it towards Drake pirates. Boss, it's not good. Is the Navy crazy and dare to shoot at us? Can't they see our flag? Or, they haven't released Captain Kaido. Woman, at this time, took a breath of cold air, held her breath, and said in extreme surprise. That person is Akainu. Rick narrowed his eyes at this time, and finally saw the figure of the man hanging on the roof of the boat. What is Kai? Is this guy brainless? Why does he do this? Woman asked in surprise. At this moment, it is extremely urgent. If we don't respond in time, I am afraid that both of their ships will be destroyed and sunk by Akainu. However, when Dre noticed that it was Akainu, he was not surprised at all. Because not long ago, when they met at the Admiralty, Akainu was too arrogant and had no respect for Kaido. Kaido disdains talking nonsense with Akainu, but Drake can't stand it. As one of Kaido's 6 sons in the sky, he will never allow anyone to speak so shamelessly to Kaido. So-called Vali's 6 sons, in layman's terms, are the 6 people who were regarded by Kaido as the closest 6, and these 6 people, Kaido has always regarded them as their own sons. Rick is one of them. Pirate ship. After seeing the overwhelming volcanic bomb, some of them clenched their teeth and wanted to fight Akainu immediately, and some were timid. The person. They know the lethality of the rock berries very well. Except, some who have the ability to resist the magma are willing to take the initiative to stand up. Most of the pirates have retreated. At this moment, Dirk's eyes narrowed, and a terrifying pressure radiated from his body at the same time. Dragon fruit, 2-stage transformation. The voice fell. Drake's right hand suddenly became extremely huge, almost bigger than the 2 pirate ships combined. Not only that, Dirk also covered this giant dinosaur's hand with a layer of armed domineering. Seeing this scene, the people on the Navy ship were stunned. One hand was so big. If Drake changed into a 3-stage style, wouldn't it be possible to block the sky and the sun to see more than a dozen volcanic bombs? About to shoot them down, Rek raised his right and waved his backhand without changing his face. Boom bang bang. Although the volcanic bomb exploded on the back of his hand, but with the defensive power of the armed color and domineering, coupled with the rough skin of the 2-stage dragon and dragon fruit, this damage was not taken seriously by Rick. Akainu was obviously not happy. You must know that big fire breathing is one of his unique tricks, but he never thought that in front of Dre, he would be vulnerable. Now that he knew that the person in charge was Akainu, Drake decisively asked someone to call Akainu. 373. Meeting with the Yellow Monkey. When Akainu learned that it was Drake who was calling, he was furious in his heart, and his face grimaced, trying his best to control his temper. Hey, is it Admiral Akainu? Drake asked in a flat tone. The more Sakazuki listened, the more angry he became. The other party really didn't take his attack seriously. Under his strong attack, he was still so calm. Yes, it's my Akainu, what's wrong? Akagi said in a low voice. It's nothing, I just want to remind General Akainu that when there is a delay now, I'm going to snatch the fruit of the shock, not here, to go through the old accounts with us, those things in the past. If General Akainu really wants to make it clear, may wish to wait until the end of this operation, and I, Drake, will stand by you. In fact, Rick has long disliked Akainu. If he can defeat Akainu in front of the Navy, maybe one of the 3 generals can be replaced by him. Of course I know this, you don't need to remind me of you, the stinky dragon. Akainu is not afraid of the other party. Since Drake dares to let out such a word without hesitation, if he does not agree, in the future, in the Navy, he will have no face-to-face. Although Drake has Kaido as his backer, Kai, no matter how much you say, he is just a pirate, and he, Sakazuki, is a serious naval admiral who has made countless contributions to the world government. Even if the killer mutilates the opponent, or kills the opponent, he still has a way to retreat. Coco. There's a lot of fun ahead to watch. At this time, the pacifists led by Kizaru, Zantaomaru and other members of the scientific corps happened to appear in the sky several hundred meters away, and were rushing forward at a fast speed. Since they fought a battle with the Blackbeard pirates, they were unfortunately swept away by an inexplicable strong storm. When they first fell back to the sea, they didn't know where they were. They searched for a long time before they were sure. Position. Very good, as long as you get here, it's not far from that weird and stern island. In fact, it was thanks to them that they met the Heart Pirates in the distance, otherwise it might have taken more time. It's just that the Heart Pirates didn't stop to pay attention to them. Gradually, the distance became farther and farther, and Kizaru was helpless, so they decided to ask the Navy headquarters for help. Sengoku called him to fight the Akainu who was daring to come. Unexpectedly, the Yellow Monkey saw a wonderful scene. Alright, that guy Akainu is used to being arrogant on weekdays, and someone should come forward and teach him a lesson. Yellow Ape laughed. And take long for the two major naval forces to come together. What did you say about the Blackbeard pirates, the Heart pirates? They actually ran in front of us. Akainu's heart tightened immediately. Order to speed up. As for Longcheng, Dirk's grievances were temporarily left behind by him. As Warring States said before, the most important purpose of this operation is to seize the fruit of the shock, and the rest are secondary. In addition, can successfully avoid the gateway set up by the Navy. The pirate group is either very strong enough to break through the Navy's defense line, or it is very weak and is freely ignored by the Navy. Island. Whitebeard finally reached the center of the island, where two volcanoes are located. Perhaps it is natural, these two volcanoes, one is an active volcano that erupts frequently, and the other is a dead fire that has not had any movement for several years. It is because of the strange phenomenon of this volcano that Whitebeard is attracted. Although he didn't quite understand it, Whitebeard guessed that the sudden eruption of this extinct volcano was probably due to the influence of his punching power, releasing the fanatical power that had been accumulated at the bottom of the volcano for a long time. But at this moment, Whitebeard's light flashed, and he wondered if the black and gold piece would be located at the bottom of the volcano, because according to common sense, it is extremely difficult for two adjacent volcanoes to have two diametrically opposite types of life and death situation. Either the magma layer at the bottom of them is not in the same location, on the one hand. It is very active, and on the other hand, it cools all the year round, but how can such a situation appear on such a small island? In this case, there are only the last possibility is that the extinct volcano in front of you is actually an active volcano, but something blocked the vent, causing the pressure inside the volcano to be constantly suppressed. With this kind of speculation, Whitebeard's heart tightened, and he walked towards the extinct volcano at the fastest speed. However, at this time, not long after Whitebeard left, a dark figure appeared under a giant tree, showing a cunning and strange smile. I can't believe that the old guy with Whitebeard is still alive. But he looks so sick, and he comes to such a dangerous place where birds don't poop. What is it for? Is he trying to hide the shock fruit or say, what is the dark secret of Whitebeard? Blackbeard decided to follow closely first and see what Whitebeard wanted to do. 374. Only one step away. Because of the extinct volcano in front of him, the internal high-pressure eruption force made its internal airflow and air pressure extremely chaotic and inflated. When Whitebeard was at the foot of the mountain, he could already feel the vibration deep in the ground. Although he is the owner of the shaking fruit and the most powerful of the four emperors, when faced with this sometimes weak and sometimes strong shaking sensation, Whitebeard can't help but show an earthy look on his forehead. There was even a small drop of sweat. After swallowing his saliva, he continued to carry Kong Yunchi and walked towards the top of the mountain with increasing difficulty step by step. It wasn't until half an hour passed that he was about to reach the hottest crater. Unexpectedly, the temperature is already so high at a distance of nearly 100 meters. If it is closer, I am afraid the temperature will be even higher. Whitebeard let out a dull sound, and a sharp pain came from his internal organs, which stimulated his nerves. At this moment, I saw a small piece of withered yellow leaf that suddenly flew out of nowhere in the air. In the few seconds after the leaf fell to the ground, it burned inexplicably after a while. Seeing this scene, Whitebeard swallowed his saliva, but after thinking about it again and again, wasn't he searching for the last piece of history in black and gold for the rest of his life? Die sooner, or die later. So, Whitebeard quickly made a decision and continued to hold on to the burning sensation that was heating up on his skin, which stimulated his nerves. At this time, the temperature outside Whitebeard's body, even when it was almost over 50 degrees, the originally pale complexion became more and more red. Damn old guy, did he find out that I was stalking him to go to such a ghost place? It's killing me, it's killing me. Blackbeard was so angry that he had just climbed the mountain for less than 2 minutes, and he was already forced by the high temperature here and could no longer move forward. Although Blackbeard's character is treacherous enough, cunning enough, and patient enough to act like a fool for years on Whitebeard's boat, it doesn't mean that he will risk his own life for something. Supernovas like Luffy and Longcheng, Blackbeard often chooses to back down or dodge when faced with difficulties beyond his power. Humph. Let's see how I deal with him later. Because Blackbeard is familiar with the use of dark abilities, he thinks that Whitebeard cannot be his opponent, so his confidence is so high. It must be fast. It's strange that it has finally stopped. If it takes a while, maybe there will be another game. At that time, the power of the dark fruit will also be greatly reduced, and it is so easy to clean up the Whitebeard. Already. Blackbeard's face sank, his fists clenched, and his right foot was about to move, but just as he stepped out, he was forced to retreat by the biting burning sensation on the ground. Isn't Whitebeard afraid of death? This kind of high temperature, even if he has the shock fruit, he may not be able to withstand it. Blackbeard grumbled reluctantly. The Whitebeard was sweating profusely, and he tore off the white cloak behind him, Thorn. With a sound, the pirate tattoo behind him was exposed. At the same time, the white cloak also slowly fell in the direction of the crater, and then a fire burst out. It's only one step away, and the last one step. Even in exchange for my life, I will let this last piece of history reappear. Ah! Immediately, Blackbeard took a deep breath, his eyes widened, the muscles on his body bulged, and Kong Yunchi was smashed to the ground by him, standing still. Roaring wildly, he saw a large piece of blood in his pupils, clenched his right fist, and swung it towards the hot ground like lava. Yes, since the volcano has just erupted, the closer you get to the crater, the more traces of magma left on the ground. Boom boom boom. Whitebeard's punch almost used all his strength. Suddenly, with his punch as the center, the ground was like an eggshell, and it began to crack open little by little, as if being hit by some kind of infinite force. Thrust, spread like crazy. Instant, the entire volcano vibrated violently, and the intensity of the tremor was almost 5 or 6 times that of the original. What's the matter? Is this ghost volcano about to erupt again? Damn it. Blackbeard was furious in his heart, gritted his teeth with hatred, and originally planned to take advantage of Whitebeard's return halfway to simply come forward to intercept him. Unexpectedly, the volcano is about to erupt again at this time. At this time, Blackbeard was running towards the bottom of the mountain, and he muttered to himself, "It's weird, why hasn't Whitebeard been down the mountain until now? Could this earthquake be caused by Whitebeard? What is he trying to do? Do you want everyone in the world to be buried with him when he is dying?" Only Blackbeard can think of such an idea. 375. What is a great man? Because he is a very selfish person. However, even if Whitebeard told Blackbeard the secrets of history, I'm afraid Blackbeard would not be interested. He only cares about 2 things now, one is unparalleled ability, and the other is supreme power. He killed Whitebeard and took the Junjun fruit from the opponent, as he possessed 2 fruits at the same time. He was definitely the most unique existence in this world. In Blackbeard's view, who would it is his opponent? After this, he will snatch everything from Whitebeard and become one of the new 4 emperors above the other 3 sea emperors. At this moment, Blackbeard has been thinking about it for a long time, but he can't imagine that today is near. Boom. At this moment, the active volcano next door a few hundred meters away erupted in advance, and a jet-black mushroom cloud instantly appeared in the eyes of Whitebeard and Blackbeard. I have to say that this is the first time that Blackbeard has witnessed a volcanic eruption at such a close distance, and he can't help feeling awe. Even the ambitious Blackbeard will unconsciously have this idea. While the black mushroom cloud was madly lifted into the sky, it was also ejected with countless purple special ores. These ores were granular, and the largest one was only half the size of a fingernail. After reacting with the ingredients in the air, these special ores quickly sublimated and merged into the purple clouds in midair, making the purple clouds gather more and more, and the thunder rolled. Boom. 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 Just when Blackbeard was still there, his feet could not stop madly rushing down the mountain, the rolling stones on the mountain were also rolling down the mountain in groups, making a sound like a group of beasts attacking. Whitebeard suddenly turned around at this moment, and with a dull sound, a familiar voice was vaguely heard in his ears. Although I can't believe it, there is no doubt that this voice is that guy's. Tiki, I didn't expect him to be the first person to see here. Could it be God's will? Whitebeard was on the ship before, but he had already realized that Haichi was a sinister and cunning person, but there was no evidence, so Whitebeard had to keep this person who was not a threat enough to stay on the ship. But he didn't know that, just after the news of his death spread among the sub-pirates, Blackbeard assassinated Sachi and stole the dark fruit. All of this, Whitebeard didn't know at all because he knew that he was about to sink into the ground. He has no power to intervene in anything in the world, and the only thing he can do at this moment is to leave this most important piece of history to the sea, who is desperately trying to unravel the concealed century-old history. Thieves! Let the truth of history be made public. At the same time, solve the huge conspiracy hidden by the world government. Great people are called great people because they are thinking about the world when they are dying and blurred. Whitebeard has always ridiculed himself that he is a sinful remnant of the old era. How many people in this world dare to face their past failures and face their own ugliness? Only those who have reached the spiritual realm of Whitebeard. It is enough to be praised by the world. Why Whitebeard can affect the world and the entire sea area, in addition to his ability to destroy the world, depends on his spiritual thinking and his generous and heroic character. Kakaka. At this time, Whitebeard recovered from his inexhaustible thoughts and noticed that the crack under his feet was getting bigger and bigger, but he did not go, because he had to wait until the crack was big enough to fall into the depths of the volcano. Only there can he have a chance to determine whether the black and gold piece of history really exists. Whether the rumors of Wano country were made up, the so-called black and gold history does not exist at all, or he didn't use the right method, so he couldn't find it for a long time. After a while, the entire extinct volcano began to vibrate violently. Anyone standing on the mountainside would be dizzy and difficult to stand. Crack. Suddenly, when Whitebeard saw that the position he was standing was actually collapsed, he was instantly delighted. The opportunity is here. Whitebeard twitched his eyes, staring at the falling mountain world. The other side. Under the guidance of Kizaru, Akainu finally reached the vicinity of the strange island with the fastest speed, but Kizaru suffered a loss, so he first called Akainu, his teacher Hiwin Zephyr and others. Vaccinate. Blackwrist Zephyr's brows were tight, and he stood on the Navy warship he belonged to and analyzed. This sea area is really strange. It is clearly located in the windless zone, but the sea is so strangely windy, but it is only from the sea. The shallow ripples are not difficult to find. The source of these strange winds should also be related to this island. Reason why he thinks so is because when they enter the vicinity, the oncoming wind is getting stronger and stronger, but at sea level, there are few waves. 376. Rescue. This is indeed quite the case, making Black Arm Zephyr wonder if the wind might come from a distant island. Both Akainu and Kizaru are behind the teacher, and they all have roughly the same views on the teacher's words. Teacher, after a while, we should encounter a big storm, so everyone must be careful. Said with a serious expression that is rarely seen on weekdays. Just as the three of them were talking, suddenly, a shocking and magnificent spectacle appeared on the island. Boom boom boom. Instant, a piercing roar that almost made people faint suddenly sounded. Sakazuki, Kizaru, Zephyr and the others all covered their ears tightly, only to see a huge flame erupting from the island for unknown reasons, soaring into the sky and rising to 200 or 300 meters. Over the sky, the fiery red magma was extremely conspicuous. Who followed behind them were also shocked by this astonishing picture in front of them. They only got the information, and the fruit of the shock appeared on this island, so they came quickly. Due to the special geographical location of this island, it is usually extremely difficult to be found, unless some people who are familiar with the waterway are found. Derek, who was still at a loss, was lucky enough to meet Kayabu's navy and rushed over with them. I don't know if it was lucky or unfortunate, but he actually saw such a scene, the volcanic magma rushing into the sky, like a red pillar of optimism, connecting the island and the sky. As they got closer and closer to the strange when they landed on the island, the purple dark clouds in the sky also began to surge, as if they were moving in a certain direction, consciously and autonomously gathering. This kind of picture is like the end of the day. In the rear, the Iron Arm pirates who were also rushing in were also deeply surprised by the deafening sound of the talent. Longcheng stood at the bow of the boat, his eyes always staring at the strange vision in the distance. Right at this moment, he slowly closed his eyes and used his best arrogance. In the absolute field, the 20-kilometer expansion of the Dragon City has almost exhausted all his thoughts, and he is concentrating on watching the breath and energy fluctuations of every creature on the island, more like opening the eyes of the sky, non-intuitively from the perspective of God. Overlooking everything. Found it. Although Longcheng spent a lot of time searching around the volcano several times, he finally saw the Whitebeard who was gasping for breath and covered in bruises near the crater. But what Longcheng didn't expect was that after Whitebeard climbed out of the crack with difficulty, he suddenly fainted. Under that kind of high temperature, no matter who it is, I'm afraid they can't stand the high temperature baking. Longcheng's eyes suddenly froze. He had to rush to the island before the navy. Duke Inuarashi, Cat Viper, I'll leave it to you here. After Longcheng left the sentence, his feet moved, and in the blink of an eye, he completely disappeared in place. Special shave, that was strengthened by the system. The shaving in the 6 naval styles, in layman's terms, is to let the caster in almost an instant, which is the so-called 0.3 seconds, high-speed movement somewhere, from one geographic location to another geographic location. This is what the Navy understands as high-speed movement. In the eyes of the Navy, shaved is a synonym for high-speed movement, but here in Longcheng, his special shaving and a unique skill, which he had used in Caesar Current's laboratory room. Horizontal jumps in multidimensional space. In other words, in the space where Dragon City is located, it can be said that there is no obstacle that can stop or trap Dragon City. Within a radius of 1 mile, at any point, Longcheng can use multi-dimensional, shaved. The way to arrive in an instant. It is precisely because of this reason that Longcheng appeared at the foot of the volcano in a blink of an eye. Due to the complex and chaotic geomagnetism here, Longcheng's perception has shifted, so he can only teleport here. Just as he was about to climb the mountain and rescue Whitebeard, suddenly, the ground at the foot of the mountain suddenly cracked, creating a 30-centimeter gap. After seeing this, Longcheng couldn't help frowning. At this moment, a massive black square metal block rolled down the mountain along with the group of rocks. Longcheng didn't think too much, but continued to shave and appeared to rescue Whitebeard from the top of the mountain. Must be admitted that when Longcheng suddenly appeared very close to the crater, it was almost suffocated and fainted by the surrounding heat wave. Fortunately, Longcheng finally managed to hold on, and took Whitebeard to a safe place at the bottom of the mountain. But in the process, Longcheng couldn't help but find that Whitebeard became extremely weak, even a little dying. 377. Awakening. Judging from the degree of burns on his body, he may have fought a fierce battle. How could it possibly be who could hurt the Whitebeard, one of the 4 dignified emperors, like this? Longcheng couldn't help but exclaimed, and said in disbelief. Although Whitebeard's condition worsened and he was dying, the so-called thin camel is bigger than a horse. Shen Xuan still thinks that it is impossible for ordinary people to get close to Whitebeard's body, let alone hurt him like this. Moreover, Longcheng saw with his own eyes that the Whitebeard escaped from the volcanic rift in embarrassment. Right now, apart from Whitebeard, Longcheng can't think of anyone with such tenacity of willpower. Another point, and the most incomprehensible thing for Longcheng, is why Whitebeard came to such a place. If he hadn't come, maybe the Navy wouldn't know the news that he was critically ill, and would not have deliberately created it. The current chaos. At this moment, the eruption of the extinct volcano is stronger, as if it is releasing the high-energy heat that has been squeezed for several years, all at once. The magma and fire soared into the sky, soaring to a height of 200 or 300 meters. At the same time, countless flaming magma blocks also fell madly from a height of several hundred meters. When Longcheng saw with his own eyes a magma stone with a diameter of only a fist size, the moment it fell to the ground, it exploded up to 60 to 70 meters of dust, and most of the island shook slightly. At the same time, Longcheng looked up and couldn't help taking a deep breath, only to see 2 rock blocks 3 times bigger than before, falling towards him and Whitebeard. Not good. If it goes on like this, Whitebeard and I will both be buried on this island. Longcheng didn't dodge, didn't think too much, but subconsciously changed into the form of a 9-tailed fox, and immediately attached the armed color domineering to his limbs. 100,000 tiles and fists and 9 chaos. Next second, Longcheng's 9 sturdy foxtails, like 9 tenacious arms, together with both hands, blasted towards the 2 rock blocks that were oncoming. Boom boom boom. However, it was thought that the 2 rocks could be easily shattered, but only half of them were destroyed, and the remaining half continued to fall. How could this be? Longcheng found that something was wrong, and he always felt that he was inexplicably weaker, and when he was shocked, he released even more powerful energy and domineering. Hua Zhengchen Super Cannon Black Dragon. As soon as the voice fell, Longcheng Shuang violently shot out a domineering energy wave with a black armed color, and with his full strength, he finally shattered the rock. At this moment, I saw him start to gasp for breath, and thought to himself, why is my power always weakening? Few seconds of contemplation, Longcheng realized something was wrong. Could it be this purple rain? Thinking about it carefully, the reason why the sea water can suppress the ability of the devil fruit, in the final analysis, is because the sea floor stone contains a lot of points. If it is said that in the world of pirates, who can extract a large amount from the sea floor stone, put a large amount of it into the rainwater, and absolutely can easily capture a large number of pirate-capable people. As a traveler, Longcheng, who is also quite familiar with the pirate plot, naturally knows this best. Fortunately, no one can do this, whether it is the scientific troop of the Yellow Monkey, or the Zero of the world government. God has closed a door for the world, and will inevitably open a window for the world. Longcheng does not think that this is influenced by the original plot, but the embodiment of the truth of the world. Just as Longcheng discovered the secret of the rain, immediately concentrate his mind power and use the golden inexhaustible heart in his body that has been strengthened by the system. Began to slowly adapt to the restraining force of the rain. In the past few seconds, Longcheng suddenly felt a huge heat coming from above his head, as if he was mercilessly attacked by waves of crazy high-temperature heat waves. Wow! He looked up at the top of his head again, and saw that in midair, a dozen or so densely burning red rocks fell from the sky, causing Longcheng to hold his breath. On the scorching ground, a C sounded. S sound. Under such circumstances, it is obviously not the most rational move to continue to resist hard. It is better to leave with Whitebeard as soon as possible, and to avoid the Navy's arrest and save Whitebeard to the ship. This is obviously the best idea, but just when Longcheng was about to help Whitebeard up, suddenly, with his detached willpower, Whitebeard woke up. Are you, Dragon City? Whitebeard said extremely weakly. I only felt that the picture in front of me had become very blurred, and there was a vaguely familiar figure squatting beside him. Yes, Whitebeard, it's me. Longcheng felt that at such a time of crisis, there was obviously not much time for them to speak, but Whitebeard suddenly used dark power to stop Longcheng from helping him. 378. Death Battle. Longcheng asked inexplicably, Whitebeard, why is this? Whitebeard took a deep breath, and said weakly and heavily, no, I can't go yet, otherwise, even if I die, I won't rest. After listening to Whitebeard's words, Longcheng once again thought of Whitebeard's purpose here. I'm going to find him. Whitebeard held his body hard, and stood up with his teeth clenched, and there was no need for Longcheng to help. I have to say that Whitebeard is really a tough guy. If it were Longcheng at this moment, he might not be able to be like Whitebeard. At this time, Whitebeard's vision also became much clearer. He didn't immediately thank Longcheng, but quickly scanned everything around him. Strange, I clearly have a perception mark printed on the surface of that thing. Why can't I perceive it at all? Could it be that my arrogance have also been lost with the weakening of vitality? Just when Whitebeard was talking to himself with a regretful tone, suddenly Longcheng vaguely felt a powerful force, which was nearby, and the other party was running at an extremely fast speed, obviously trying to escape from this place. That's Blackbeard Titch. Longcheng frowned and exclaimed. As soon as these words were uttered, Whitebeard was furious, and an unquenchable murderous aura burst forth from his body. Longcheng, tell me, where is that bastard? Whitebeard tried his best to control his grief and anger. Longcheng immediately supported the Whitebeard, moved his feet, and used the fastest shave. This rain has an inhibitory effect on the devil fruit, but it has no effect on the Navy sixth form. Almost instantly, Longcheng and Whitebeard appeared in front of Blackbeard, and at this moment, Blackbeard was almost frightened by the two in front of him. Whitebeard. Is there Moonlight Dragon City? Moonlight Dragon City, why are you here? Blackbeard's heart tightened, sitting on the ground, and asked anxiously, if he knew this, he should have eliminated Whitebeard at the crater. Look at this rather strange, black bear, in front of you. If it were the former Dragon City, I would definitely not be able to stop laughing. Because Blackbeard's hair seems to have been burned in half by the fire, and both arms also have burns to varying degrees, and they are all large areas. At first glance, Blackbeard at this moment seems to have just escaped from the fire scene. Refugees, people can't bear to look directly. Blackbeard, you are the shame of the Whitebeard pirates. I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you, if it wasn't for Whitebeard who suddenly said that he was looking for you. We have long since escaped from this place of right and wrong. Longcheng's eyes were full of hostility at this time, staring at Blackbeard intently. However, at this moment, the ground shaking became more intense, and Whitebeard hurriedly said to Longcheng beside him, Longcheng, before the volcano has completely collapsed, you can go look for it, I will pour it in. I've been looking for the same thing for the rest of my life. What is? To know from Whitebeard's mouth. History. Whitebeard's tone suddenly became solemn, as if this secret had been hidden in his heart for a long, long time. But, Whitebeard. Before Longcheng could ask the question, Whitebeard suddenly interrupted, the situation is urgent, you just need to find the black and gold piece of history, and then go to Marco, he will give everything he knows. Told you. Indeed, what Whitebeard said was right, although Longcheng and he both avoided the fall of the rock group temporarily and came to the other side of the island, but he believed that the same danger should come again soon. The best way is to leave the island as soon as possible. Marco. Longcheng is not surprised by this. If you want to ask which squad leader of the Whitebeard pirates is the most loyal to Whitebeard, that is Marco. I remember that in the original plot, after the big event, the body of Whitebeard was secretly brought back to Whitebeard's hometown, Sphinx by Marco. It is also because of Marco that this barren land that is too barren to pay for the dragons is high, the taxed backcountry can be peaceful for a short time. However, what Longcheng cares more about is the tone of Whitebeard's speech, which is like a soldier who sees death at home. Longcheng looked at his back, obviously he didn't say anything more, but turned his back. Because whether it is sympathy or sadness, it is an insult to Whitebeard. Whitebeard is determined to die, the only thing Longcheng can do now is help him find that black and golden piece of history. If the speed is fast enough, maybe he can turn back and save Whitebeard. What can make Whitebeard rather risk death and find something must be extremely important. Longcheng is relatively familiar with historical matters, unfortunately, as His Highness Wano country, he has no interest in the historical text at all. According to the memory of the past, the history is divided into two parts. 379. Whitebeard vs. Blackbeard. Part is the history of the Red Road sign, which consists of 4 pieces and records the specific location information of Ralph Drew. You know, for all pirates, Ralph Drew is the place they most dream of reaching, because the pirate king Gol Roger placed the legend there. The other part is a record of 100 years of real history that is suspected to have been modified by the world government. As for the piece of black and gold history mentioned by Whitebeard, it is most likely the second case. Because of the history of the 4 red road signs, Longcheng generally knows who they are in the hands of. Immediately, after Longcheng thought of this, he lightly patted his feet, and under the action of shaving, he instantly disappeared in place. At this moment, after Blackbeard witnessed Longcheng's departure, a sinister smile appeared on his face again, and he got up from the ground. Hey, Whitebeard, there is a way to heaven, you don't go, and there is no way to hell, you come by yourself, you are courting death yourself, no wonder I. Blackbeard laughed. Titch, the account between the two of us, as well as the account of Sachi, I will get it back today. Whitebeard said angrily. Not long ago, Whitebeard was in the depths of the volcano, struggling to find traces of history, but who would have thought that Blackbeard suddenly appeared from behind him and launched a powerful attack on Whitebeard. Whitebeard vomited a large amount of blood, which completely angered him, thus triggering a new round of eruption of the volcano. It was also during this period that Blackbeard revealed all his sins to Whitebeard. Originally, Blackbeard really planned to run away for the time being, but after thinking about it, if the Navy and other pirates were attracted by the volcanic eruption here, wouldn't this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to capture the shocking fruit be lost in vain, although it is a little dangerous. But in order to shake the fruit, he still risked it. If Whitebeard dies naturally, the shaking fruit will return to the earth. At that time, it will only be more difficult for Blackbeard to get the shaking fruit. But it was a blessing in disguise that at the critical moment, Whitebeard finally found the piece of black and gold history that he had been looking for decades in the depths of the crater. The warmth around him rose again, and even the beard's head burned off most of it, and a large piece of skin on his right arm was burned by the lava falling from the stone wall, so he had to be forced to leave. Back at the moment, Blackbeard saw that Whitebeard was gasping for breath, so he grinned. Whitebeard, considering your kindness to me in the past, as long as you are willing to hand over the shocking fruit, I will consider it. Spare your life. You guy, don't be too arrogant, today, I will let you and this island burn together. Ah! Whitebeard roared angrily, raised his sturdy right arm, and slammed it on the ground, only to hear, boom. Was a startling sound, and the whole ground began to crack open quickly. From a distance, it looked more like a magic mouth that could devour the earth. However, due to the influence of Ziyu, Whitebeard's punch just now could have caused Blackbeard to fall directly into the dark abyss, but it only opened a big gap of less than 2 meters, and Blackbeard's mysterious got up and jumped in time, escaped the danger. How about Whitebeard, do you think you, running out of strength? Blackbeard staggered and got up from the ground again, laughing. Humph, isn't it the same for you? You ate the devil fruit that Sachi guarded, and you can't be completely fine in this rain. Whitebeard said panting, and at the same time, beads of sweat on his forehead were also pouring out. Hey, that's right, but maybe God has mercy on me, so now I can freely display a small-scale liberation. How about Whitebeard, do you want to experience for yourself what despair is? Blackbeard deliberately accented the last 2 words. As soon as he finished speaking, his right hand suddenly raised, and immediately, in the center of his palm, an inexplicable stream of dark air emerged, spreading to a range of 1 meter in diameter. The Whitebeard looked closely, and his scalp became slightly cold. Blackbeard smiled and walked towards Whitebeard step by step. Reason why he dared to be so arrogant was mainly because he could see at a glance that Whitebeard's physical strength had clearly reached its limit, not to mention the fact that he wanted to continue to use the power of the shocking fruit. It would be very difficult to even throw a punch. Whitebeard, stop struggling, and give me the Junjun fruit obediently, and I will spare the lives of your sons in the future. When he said this, Blackbeard was less than 2 meters away from Whitebeard. Whitebeard's legs were shaking all the time, but he fought to the end, and he would rather die than yield. Blackbeard scowled, and without hesitation he stretched out his hands towards Whitebeard's head. Liberation. Suddenly, before Blackbeard's words were finished, he saw a heavy fist smashed towards him. 380. A generation of sea emperors. Impossible. Blackbeard took a close look, slammed his eyes, showing a completely incredible expression. How could it be possible? Before he could react, that dark black fist slammed into his face without hesitation. Immediately, there was a muffled sound in the air, and Blackbeard's entire tall body was shot straight 6 or 7 meters away. When he got up again, he saw his 2 front teeth fell to the ground. Blackbeard was startled, but the next moment, he gritted his teeth in hatred, twitched his plump face, and stood up slowly. You must know that Blackbeard had already lost one of his front teeth, which made his appearance quite ugly. Who would have guessed that Whitebeard still had such great strength, and at a critical moment, he used his armed domineering arrogance. Blackbeard's face is fierce and his eyes are full of hostility. He seems to have decided that before this island is destroyed, Whitebeard will be brought to justice on the spot, no matter how good Whitebeard has been to him in the past, but anyone who wants to stop him from moving forward, there is only one end, and that is death. The same is true of Beasta, Whitebeard, and Moonlight Dragon City. They are all stumbling blocks in front of them, and they all have to die. Blackbeard still has some spare energy. He originally planned to go to Moonlight Dragon City to settle accounts after winning Whitebeard. I remember in the past, when Moonlight Dragon City temporarily lived on the Whitebeard pirate ship, he never took Blackbeard seriously, and even sometimes, he could feel the faint murderous aura of Moonlight Dragon City. Undoubtedly, that murderous aura was directed at his black beard. Reason why Longcheng did this is not without reason. As a traverser, he is also a person who is familiar with the plot of pirates, and he is well aware of Blackbeard's lawless behavior in the later period. Among them, the most unbearable thing for Longcheng is, Blackbeard once led his pirate group, and took all the territory, gold, treasures and artillery resources of Whitebeard as his own. Marco, Beasta, Joes, etc. For more than 10 years, went to guard and support one after another. The battle was fierce and both sides suffered heavy losses. Be the final battle, and it will bring an end to a generation of sea emperors and their loyal sons, heralding the end of the era of Whitebeard. Since then, the members of the Whitebeard pirates have disappeared without a trace, and the only person who can still be remembered in Longcheng is Mar, who guards his hometown for Whitebeard. The Whitebeard of the dignified generation of sea god kings, after his death, was bullied and ignored so much. Knowing that there will be such an ending in Longcheng, how can Blackbeard be satisfied? For this reason, Longcheng was on Whitebeard's boat, trying to get rid of Blackbeard many times, but unfortunately, he saved Blackbeard several times. This is a straight, I have to say that the traitor of Longcheng. Fortunately, Whitebeard and several captains were able to keep the safety of Longcheng, and at the same time avoided the intensification of conflicts between other crew members and Longcheng. Of course, although Whitebeard is somewhat incomprehensible about what Longcheng has done, he is quite hopeful that Longcheng will succeed, because he has long suspected the sinister side of Blackbeard. Back to the present. Blackbeard focused his eyes on the scarred Whitebeard, and saw that the other party was breathing heavily and sweating profusely, as if he was about to fall down at any moment. Blackbeard didn't dare to underestimate Whitebeard again after suffering the big loss just now, and be cautious. Whitebeard, your struggles are in vain, don't bother. Speaking of this, a transparent bead of sweat fell from Blackbeard's forehead, and then he said, I know, you are waiting for Moonlight Dragon City and your pirate group to come to rescue you. Moonlight Dragon, I won't say anything about the city. You and I know the situation on the top of the mountain best. If you want to find that black golden stone, unless he digs into the depths of the magma. As for your sons, I'm afraid they have already been intercepted by the Navy and trapped in the traps specially set up by them. I can't take care of myself, I advise you, don't make senseless resistance anymore, just die obediently. I am a remnant of the old era. The new era has no boat that can carry me. I can still survive by luck. From the beginning to the end, it is only for this matter today. Since the final wish has been fulfilled, I am dead. It's no longer important to live. At this time, Whitebeard's heart tightened, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. But, even if I die, I will take you Tiki and leave this world together. Ah! As soon as the voice came out, Whitebeard roared again, as if to stimulate the biggest and strongest power at the moment in this roar. This lunatic. After seeing this, Blackbeard couldn't help trembling all over, and was forced to take a step back by the strong coercion of Whitebeard.